Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a while since I last featured Marceline, the royal ball python, on my YouTube channel. Everybody say hi to Marceline. She's so cute. Okay. I'm also wearing my Pythons Enthusiast t-shirt on my channel. So, today is going to be my most contentious video yet, and it is not what you would probably expect a contentious video of mine to be on, but most likely you read the title if you are presumably literate, so you already know what this video is about. Now, first of all, I am planning on clickbaiting you. I don't actually think we should get rid of health class, which is the euphemistic term for American sex ed. However, I do think we need, number one, major reforms, and number two, to make it less mandatory, because I think there are a lot of 9 to 14-year-olds who don't really need to learn all this stuff and are experiencing more trauma than education from health class, such as myself. So today I'm gonna mostly talk about my experience with health class and sex ed in general, and why I think either I should have been exempt from it, which I do think I should have been, or what we need to change. So to begin with, I work with kids. Now, I am fortunate enough to not have to give them the talk, although I honestly think I would be pretty good at it, but the 9 to 11-year-olds have just experienced their first health class, which is when all the girl students will go to one classroom and all the boy students will go to another classroom, and then the female teachers will go with the girls, the male teachers will go with the boys, and they will talk to the children about puberty. Now, I think if you remember what it was like to be 9 to 10 years old, you can imagine why it would not be a good time for these teachers who are ordinarily teaching math, English, and social studies suddenly talking to a bunch of kids in this very sex-segregated environment about private parts and how they work. You can maybe understand, as I did when I entered work that day, why all the 9 to 11-year-old kids were very distressed about the things they were learning. And I think that because every healthy child goes through, as my sheltered, prudish mind called it at the time, female and male metamorphosis, I don't think we want to be scaring our kids about it more than they already are. I feel that the environment of being in a classroom where a teacher is talking at you full force in your face about all the functions of private parts and all the things that are going to happen to your body on your way to becoming an adult, it felt like for some kids, it was already like, well, I'm already starting this already. Hooray, it's going to get even worse. Or it creates this impending sense of doom. One of the children from work was asking me a ton of questions about menstruation, when is it going to happen to her, how she's constantly checking in the bathroom to make sure she hasn't bled through her clothes, even though she hasn't experienced this yet, and probably won't for a number of years. And it honestly mirrors my own experience so much of my first health class when I was 9 years old. No, I was 10. It was the end of 4th grade. So this is like a core memory for me. I distinctly remember I missed the first health class. There were 2 health classes, and it was really just an afternoon of a couple teachers talking at us. 3 or 4 teachers, actually. I missed the first health class because I woke up before 6 in the morning and puked in the doorway of my bedroom. This one. In fact, if you decide to bury your face in the carpet over there, you could still probably smell it. I'm sorry, that was so unpleasant. Okay, sorry. I just distinctly remember I was sick that day, which just feels kind of karmic, and I'm just kidding, I don't believe in karma. But the next week when I went to health class, I had missed really the talk, and I was now just here for the video. And I distinctly remember that all the girls had already submitted questions to the teacher the week before, so the teachers then read out a bunch of anonymous questions, none of which I had submitted, but granted, I would not have submitted any questions because I really didn't want to know anything. I kind of knew already everything I needed to know. And anything else I hadn't known, I did not want to know. I already knew more than I wanted to know. And we watched this video about this girl named Danielle, and I really hope I'm not doxing myself because I don't know if my school was the only one to show this video. I don't remember what it was called, but I remember we were watching Danielle, who was presumably an 11 or 12-year-old girl, going about her daily life, while a narrator talked about how she was going through puberty and how girls who go through puberty experience periods and their chest develops and they get hair and they start to smell more and they need to wear deodorant, yada yada yada. And we're just watching this young girl, and I could be misremembering. Somebody can find it and clarify for me. The dog should stop barking. That is rude. But I distinctly remember them putting this young girl in a very skimpy crop top or a skimpy spaghetti strap, and I felt like, even at 10, I feel like they're trying to emphasize her developing body by putting her in this skin-tight outfit, and I'm really uncomfortable right now. But yeah, I remember us seeing that video, and then afterwards the teachers answered some questions, and one girl had submitted a question like, what's wrong with me? I'm noticing all these boys around me, and every boy around me is cute. Help. And the teacher who read it read help in a very deadpan voice. 10-year-old girl discovers ovulation. Just kidding. I don't know. But I found out later that the girls spent an extra 30 minutes answering questions that I really did not want to know the answers to, that maybe an individual girl wanted the answers to. Whereas the boys had no questions and they got to go outside and play kickball for an extra half hour. See, I don't know if I would call that sexism or like just a general mismatch of gendered behaviors that I experienced, but that was my first health class. And I remember the teachers talking about how it was super common for 10-year-old girls to get their periods, and I was freshly 10, and I was freaking out like, oh my goodness, any day it's going to happen to me. My life is going to be over. Now, as it happened, actually, I believe it was that year, the teachers mentioned that if you exercise more, your puberty will come along more slowly. And I remember as a young 10, 11-year-old girl, I internalized that so much. And that was actually when I began thinking about over-exercising or running more or working out more. Now, some of this is a chicken or egg situation. Would I have developed such an unhealthy complex with puberty had I been taught better? Or did I already have one to begin with that made health class so horrible? Drop your theories below. I am, again, mostly talking about my own experience, but I am also talking about how certain things I was taught at the time led me to developing really unhealthy complexes. In a much earlier video when I was 16 on this channel, I talk about my compulsive over-exercising, which did stem from learning in health class at 10 or 11 years old that exercising more causes puberty to develop more slowly, which isn't actually true. It's really 99% genetic, and even if you don't exercise at all, it still might come about more slowly. If you are unhealthy, puberty may develop much more quickly or much more slowly. But if you are exercising a healthy amount, if you are just generally being healthy, then it's really not going to be affected. It's just going to develop when it develops genetically. So again, this environment of almost high stress, even more taboo in my opinion, teachers talking at you about private parts all suddenly, all in your face. Now, it could be because, I grew up in, number one, I grew up in an American school. Number two, I grew up in a part of, I'm from California. I grew up in a part of California where kids my age weren't dating until they were 16 or 17 years old. It was taboo to even kiss, like in your first years of high school. Kids were not doing stuff. And honestly, I think that most of the kids did not need to be taught a lot of the things that they were taught as young as 14. Now, I know a lot of people will have contentions with that. I will get into that. Again, I'm not saying we should get rid of health class or sex ed. I just don't think it should be mandatory for everybody. Now, I know, especially like in health class in elementary school, you were allowed to be exempt from it. Your parents could pull you out of it. It was usually the Muslim kids for religious reasons. My best friend at the time, I know she was exempt from it, and she just watched a health video about nutrition. I will get into nutrition, by the way. I'm not just going to talk about sex ed. I am talking about health in general. So I had health class at 10 years old and at 11 years old. I was not at my school when I was 12 because I was homeschooled from the grades 6th to 8th grade. So again, if you're not American, that is roughly 11 to 13 or 14, depending on when your birthday is. I remember my 5th grade health class. I just learned some information from health class that made me think I was intersex. I will not elaborate further. I will say another thing. Because of how high stress I felt that health class was, maybe not just for me, but maybe for other kids too. I doubt anyone on my channel remembers their health class. Most people don't. It's kind of annoying how many people don't remember being 9 to 14 because health class really sucked. And there are so many people my age and even younger and older who are like, oh, we need better sex ed. No, I feel like American sex ed is fine. Everyone's just dissociating because they're really uncomfortable in the environment. That's why nobody's learning anything. And also there is some stuff like pleasing your partner that should not be a sex ed thing. It should be like a trial and error and communication thing when you're a grown-up or older, when you're actually experimenting with these things. It's not appropriate for a school environment. Okay. So the next time I took health class was when I was 14 in 9th grade, after 3 years of not having any health class type education. The only health class I was being exposed to was general fitness, exercise, and all of it was taught in a very healthy way. Like, I was actually taught that jogging is okay, but you should be able to jog at a pace where you're not huffing and puffing. You can actually carry on a bit of a conversation. So you are moving your feet. There are moments where your feet are not touching the ground, but you're not sprinting. You're not sprinting for long periods of time. No one's going to watch all of this video, but if anyone is watching this video, let me know if you want me to do a video where I talk about why I don't think high school cross country, or why I don't think cross country should be a middle school and high school sport, because I actually think that cross country is fundamentally unhealthy as a former cross country runner. But again, video for a different time. Let me know if you would watch that. But when I was homeschooled, I was taught stuff about fitness. I was taught stuff about first aid. I wasn't taught about puberty and general sex education until I was 14. Now, this is where I'm going to branch off from just talking about sex ed and talk about general health class. So when I took health at 14, it was an entire semester class where I was going in pretty much every day for like 45 minutes to 80 minutes at a time while our teacher talked at me and we wrote essays and we watched videos about different things. The first thing we talked about was mental health, right? I think the first thing we talked about was mental health. The second thing we talked about was nutrition. We talked about general L plus stuff, LGBTQIA plus, just it's L plus, okay? We talked about the sex ed part, and oh my word, won't say who my teacher was for obvious reasons, but she told us that her favorite unit of health class to talk about was family life, aka sex ed, because America really does not want to call sex ed, which I don't know if I have a problem with that. I just find that amusing, but I think it is a very American thing. But I was really disturbed by the fact that our teacher's favorite thing to do was talk to 14-year-olds about sex and like protection and stuff. Now, here's where I will deviate and say that studies show we have fewer teen and child pregnancies and fewer teens and children developing STIs when they are taught comprehensive sex education where, protection and STIs are talked about. However, I didn't really need to know about that at 14. I just found it really unpleasant and uncomfortable. And I think there were a lot of 14-year-olds in my class who really didn't need to know that. Are there 14-year-olds who are doing stuff? Yeah. I'm only saying doing stuff because it's YouTube. Like, I'm not a prude. I'm a chill cosmopolitan, okay? I'm not one of those Yanks. Sorry. Are there 14-year-olds who do stuff? Yes. Did they go to my school? The majority of them did not. The majority of kids at my school were not doing that. How do you know? Well, you wouldn't know. You didn't go to my school. Again, are there 14-year-olds who do stuff? Yes. Are there 10-year-olds who do stuff? Unfortunately, yes. And I think that health class and sex ed is one of those things that, again, it shouldn't be mandatory, because not every 14-year-old and not every 10-year-old is doing this stuff, but it should also be fit to the culture and area that it is being taught in. And I think that comprehensive sex education can look different in different schools, and my school didn't really have a teen pregnancy or teen STI issue as some other schools did. And I don't think it's because we had better sex ed. I think it's just because we had different cultures. I also don't want to forget to mention, it's so important for the parents to do their job and educate kids about these things. A lot of parents don't. My parents did, actually. I kind of wish they didn't. I didn't want to know any of this stuff. I honestly think, I kind of think just, like, puberty ruined my life, but that is neither here nor there. Anyways, it is really important for parents to know their kid and talk to their kid at the level that works to educate their kid. These are really conversations that I think are meant for parent and child, because it involves body stuff and private stuff that I don't think belongs in a public school setting, but that's just me. I don't know anyone else who agrees with me except, like, other 10-year-olds. I'm not 10, but sometimes I wonder. Somebody changed my birth certificate. Maybe I really am 10. That extra 10 years of memory I have isn't actually real. So, sex ed. In addition to that, we again learned about mental health and nutrition and a lot of other things. Now, let's talk about nutrition now. I don't know if this is a general health class thing or just my health class thing, but my health teacher did not teach us how to have proper nutrition. My teacher taught us how to diet, and she framed dieting in a way that was healthy, normal eating for 14-year-olds. She basically taught us to calculate how many calories we burn in a day, average out, like, our weight and height, and how many calories we probably should eat in a day. And then we were supposed to look at nutrition, ingredients, and calories on the backs of food boxes, and we were supposed to kind of count how many calories we were consuming in a day and use that to build meal plans that had a calorie limit that went under the amount of calories we were burning every day. This is called dieting. Most 14-year-olds should not be dieting, and even the 14-year-olds who might have a slower metabolism or are overweight, they should be exercising more and eating a balanced diet, not dieting. 14-year-olds should not be dieting. We are growing so fast at this age. Most of us are, like, hitting our growth spurts, hitting our second growth spurts, generally pretty skinny. I was a very skinny 14-year-old, and I was being told I was supposed to calorie count. Now, I don't think any other student took it as seriously as I did, because, like, I have some weird complexes. I'm a strange individual. I have a lot of symptoms for OCD. I have never really been formally diagnosed with anything because diagnoses are expensive, and I can function pretty normally in my day-to-day life, but operating under the assumption that I have possible undiagnosed OCD, OCD involves obsessions and compulsions. Obsessions are these different anxieties that can be irrational, like people around you dying, accidentally killing people, general intrusive thoughts, unpleasant thoughts that enter your mind that you're scared of, and then they involve compulsions, which are usually unrelated to the obsession. They're different rituals you do to get rid of the anxieties in your head. And for me, from the ages of 12 to 17, it was running. It was running every day, and at first it was 2 miles, and then it was 3 miles, and then it was 4 miles every day. And part of this stemmed from when I was homeschooled, I was supposed to do PE every day. Some form of physical education, could be swimming, walking, biking, running, and I chose running because it was the fastest. And it turned out I was actually very fast and had really good endurance. And all of a sudden, gradually over time, it turned into more of a compulsion and less of an assignment. So after I went back to public school, I started running 3 miles every day and then 4 miles every day. And then when I started cross country and track, I was still running 4 miles every day, and I couldn't just stop doing that, even though I was running miles and miles for practice after school, because it was really, like, running 4 miles every day wasn't just an exercise thing. It was a compulsion thing. I had to do it to make sure, like, I would be okay and my day would be okay. And so already at 14, I was running 3 miles every day. So not only was I a quickly growing kid who needed to eat as much as I could, but I was also an athlete running, doing a very intense athlete workout every day that I didn't really even factor into how many calories I should be eating every day. And on top of that, I was also a very picky eater. So I'm being told this nonsense about counting calories at 14. I'm being fear-mongered into believing that processed food and sugar was like morally bad. That's just the way the teacher was communicating it, like really bad, gonna make you unhealthy, gonna make you fat, etc., etc., etc. And because I was such a picky eater, my main calorie intake consisted of processed foods and sugary foods. So because I was so scared of, being unhealthy, I developed orthorexia. So I ran out of storage, which is annoying. But in health class, I developed orthorexia, which is a condition where you are genuinely anxious about eating processed foods and unhealthy foods, and you have to eat highly nutritional foods all the time, or you will feel very distressed and anxious. It's not the same as trying to eat better. It's not the same as trying to diet. It's genuinely an anxiety-fueled condition that revolves around eating. It's different from anorexia because you are actually eating, and like ortho means correct or right. So it's like correct eating, but it's a disorder. So I developed orthorexia around 14, and I was also compulsively running all the time. So it ended up stunting my growth and not only leaving me 152 centimeters or 5 feet nothing, pretty much, leading me to stop growing around 12. It also caused me to not get my period until I was 17. So yes, my earliest videos on my channel, I was periodless. Yeah, that's cool. And I also have a general baby face and kind of look a bit underdeveloped because I was not getting enough nutrition when I was during the most formative years of my growth. And again, part of that is my own personality, but I do think it was triggered by the way health class was taught to me, which was very inappropriate. Another thing that health class taught me at the time was my health class teacher specifically, when talking about trans issues and gender dysphoria. Again, at 14, I knew what gender dysphoria was, and I knew I had something weird going on, but I was like, well, it's not gender dysphoria because it's not all the time. And the teacher told us, so gender dysphoria is like, here's how to know if you're not trans. If you can look at yourself in the mirror naked and you like what you see. And I was like, well, that clears things up. I am trans as heck. But now looking back as an adult, I'm like, okay, what 14-year-old enjoys looking at themselves naked and actually likes what they see? That's like one of the most insecure times of your life. You're thinking you're too short, you're too skinny, you're too fat, your acne is acting up, your body looks weird, your proportions are weird. 14-year-olds are not confident in their appearance. And if you were confident in your appearance at 14, that is amazing, and I love that for you. But telling 14-year-olds that their gender revolves around feeling comfortable with their naked body, that is such bad advice. Now, I don't think that caused me to be trans or that caused me to develop gender dysphoria. Again, some of these things are inherent, some of these things were triggered by health class, but I feel like the way that health class was taught in the schools that I've been to really worked together to make my general adolescence so much worse. So now what is the solution? In my opinion, because health class has so many issues with it, I think it just should not be mandatory. I think there are plenty of kids who would benefit from health class and should go to health class, and it should be an option, but I think there should be other really necessary options, such as first aid. Ideally, you should learn first aid in health class, but we did not in 9th grade. You can dedicate an entire semester to first aid and what to do in an emergency and all the different things you can do, and physical examples actually doing that with mannequins. You can make high school first aid for 9th graders really interesting and really educational. You can make it very hands-on. Education should be more hands-on in general. That just allows us to remember and apply things better. We could dedicate entire classes to basic finances, filling out forms, filling out checks, making bank accounts, something that a lot of people don't learn until they're 18 and could benefit from learning earlier. We can dedicate an entire class to learning about different cultures around the world. Americans are very isolated because we're given American media, we're given media created by Americans. While we get a lot of stuff from China, it's very westernized, we often don't know what it looks like in other parts of the world. And cultural studies can be really beneficial in high school and not just an optional class in college. So I think there's a lot of stuff we could be benefiting from, at the ages of 14 alternatively to learning about IUDs and chlamydia that a lot of 14-year-olds really don't have to worry about. Some do, but most of the ones I grew up with did not. Again, I'm not saying we should get rid of health class. I'm saying we should definitely fix it so that we're not scaring kids into not wanting to go through puberty, so that we're not scaring kids into thinking that sex is super hard and dangerous and scary and such. Not scare kids into developing eating disorders at 14. And also, because the reforms do not exist yet, offer alternatives and not make health class mandatory. Thank you, and thank you, Marceline, for being such a good moral support.